got a lot going on. A lot going on to discuss. We're going to start with the Vince McMahon story, which was broken by the Wall Street Journal on Wednesday. And
is that a reputable magazine? Can we trust
it? I think so.
That renowned wrestling publication.
Yeah, you got to watch for the pro wrestling bias there. Obviously, there's a bunch of AEW marks over at the Wall Street Journal. They're just framing Vince McMahon. No, it's a serious story, though. Could have long-term ramifications. We'll see how this develops. If you're not aware and you haven't been plugged into the news over the last couple of days, the gist of it is that somebody leaked to the Wall Street Journal that going back, I guess it was March, this came out to the WWE Board of Directors. Vince McMahon had a relationship with a woman who's right around 40 years old. I think she was hired in 2019, and she was a paralegal for the company. Started seeing McMahon. McMahon claims it was consensual.
By seeing, Ryan means doing.
Yes. Thank you, guys. And allegedly, yes. And so they had this relationship, which Vince is calling consensual. And I guess the deal is her salary went allegedly from $100,000 to $200,000 per year while she was seeing McMahon. According to the Wall Street Journal report, she eventually started working for John Laurinaitis, and he's in trouble here too. I'm not going to... I see you laughing already, Kyle. The quote that was used in the story was that she was passed off like a toy to John Laurinaitis.
We are not talking about the new line of Hasbro figures.
Yes, I wish we were. And eventually, according to the source who broke this story, which, of course, we don't know who that was, eventually what happened is she, became uncomfortable with the dynamics of what was happening, and a hush money payment and non-disclosure agreement went out to this woman, and it was a $3 million hush money payment, $1 million up front, $2 million spread out over 5 years. And the board of directors has hired a firm to look into these allegations. From the McMahon side, the claim is that the money paid out was out of his own personal finances. It wasn't out of company money. If it was company money, that would be a big-time no-no. So that's what they're investigating. But also the thing that could really get him in trouble here is, tying that salary increase to the relationship could turn really awful for McMahon very quickly because, of course, that is company money. So, a lot to digest. We don't know who leaked the story. We know that before Stephanie stepped away, this came out to the board of directors, so she was aware of it at the time. So that's very interesting with the timing of her leaving. We got 12 people on the board of directors at WWE. Of course, Vince being one of them, he didn't leak it. I assume the person who leaked it would be someone from the board of directors because they're the people plugged in that knew this investigation was happening. It wouldn't have been talent. Talent would know anything about this. Pat McAfee talked about this on his podcast today and said something like, I know next to nothing about this. No, talent's not going to know about this. This is an office situation.
I heard the leak was signed Henry Hughes Huxley. We don't know who that is yet, but we're going to get down to it.
That's the interesting dynamic here is because if this were to take down Vince, and he had to step away from the company, who would end up running things? And it very well could be Paul Levesque. Could be Bruce Pritchard, although we can get into this whole discussion. But to me, if Vince is out, it's hard to imagine Bruce Pritchard staying around. There would be such a shakeup in the power structure of WWE if Vince were to step away. It's really, really hard to predict what would happen. But is it even going to take down McMahon? I don't know. It depends on what the corporate sponsors think about this. It depends what, their television partners think about it. Certainly businessmen have fallen for less than this, but this is wrestling. It depends how much media coverage comes out of this. Sometimes, people don't give wrestling the coverage it deserves in the mainstream media, but if the mainstream media picks up at this and they go back into the archives, shall we say, and they pick up some of the scandals that have happened in the past, and they start looking into McMahon's history. We know he's had affairs in the past. I mean, it could get really messy really fast.
I mean, he
Kyle.
bragged about him in whatchamacallit, Penthouse, right?
Yeah.
In, what was that, like 20-something years ago?
Years
Yeah,
ago.
so, look, he's not leaving on his own accord, okay? I mean, you think about Vince McMahon being dragged out of there. I have visions of WrestleMania 19, him on the stretcher, just flipping the bird to Hulk Hogan. He's not going out on his own accord. Media pressure, okay? That alone, I don't think is going to remove him, because who is one of Vince McMahon's friends?
The former president?
Yes. The former president of the United States. Who, did he not have a very similar situation to this? Wasn't the Stormy Daniels thing very similar to this? Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe Mr. Trump responded to that. Was alleged by saying, you know what, this is too much. I'm going to step down as the president of the United States. I'm out. I don't think that's what he did.
Different dynamic, but yeah.
Yeah.
In his defense, that was the only wrong thing he ever did, though.
A fair point, yes.
Justin, always the sensible one here.
Yes. But, I mean, he tweeted through it, right? Now.
I mean, of course, he's not like reporting to a board of directors. He has voters who voted him out.
Yeah, I was going to say, he was the
but...
president of the United States.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, by bringing that up, what I'm trying to get at is the mindset of the individual. Okay? Like, you know, for people who don't follow wrestling, which is absolutely no one listening to this podcast, but, you know, I mean, Vince McMahon is one of the few comps to the Donald Trump mindset personality that we have in America, right? He's just kind of like a poor man's Donald Trump. So he's not going away because of the media. He's not going away because he feels sorry or just he thinks he's not. You're going to, he's not going away till he literally just can't move anymore.
I mean, this is his baby. This is going to be like, the NRA with their guns. They're going to have to pry it out of Vince McMahon's cold, dead hands.
Absolutely. Now, the only way I can see him leaving or being forced out, and this to me is the most fascinating part of the story, is, as you kind of alluded to there, Ryan, who did leak this? And is there an internal power struggle going on right now at Titan Towers? Because this story being leaked to the Wall Street Journal very much lines up with Stephanie being gone. The Business Insider article that was leaked that kind of buried Stephanie, that insinuated she wasn't very good at her job, which was stunning to me.
Yeah.
Who is a potential fall guy in this situation if Vince doesn't go down?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. It wasn't on me.
I hired the wrong one-legged guy.
Oh, God. Yeah, Johnny Ace he's in trouble.
Okay, was he replaced by once upon a time? The last time he worked
Triple H?
Yes, exactly. And that wasn't like, sorry, Johnny. I guess that was like they wanted him gone. Yeah. They didn't like they don't like Bruce either. Triple H instead. I mean, that was like the big thing, that they didn't want Bruce there. They didn't want Johnny there. They didn't want Kevin Dunn there anymore. They wanted to replace all three of them. For a time, Bruce and Johnny were gone, but now they're back. Kevin Dunn never left.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, we don't know who it was. Was it someone who's just trying to like drive down a stock price or something to try to buy the company? We could recklessly speculate on this all day.
I mean, it had to have been someone on the board of directors, don't you think?
I don't
know who else would know about it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I don't think the rank and file of WWE would know about this.
No, absolutely not.
Like the creative team, the wrestlers. I find it hard to believe that anyone outside of a very small group knew about this.
Yeah.
And so, what's their agenda for doing it?
I mean, that's the question. I 100% agree with you. Vince is not stepping down on his own accord. The only way is if this just blows up to such a level that it tanks the value of the company. I did see the stock fell a little bit today.
But not a lot.
No, it was like, last I looked, it was like 3% or something. Now, WWE's stock has been growing. We know the market hasn't been doing well lately, but WWE stock's been growing because, I mean, their money, for lack of a better term, is in the bank. They got all these TV sponsorship deals. You know, like the amount of money they make LiveGate wise is like not where they're making their money anymore. We talk about this all the time.
A drop in the bucket.
Yeah, like the show quality doesn't even matter anymore because all their money is given to them up front with these television contracts, which are only going to continue to go up. So, you know, they're still ultra profitable no matter what's happening with the economy. And that's, you know, their stock prices continue to grow. It is down a little bit from this. The only way I can see Vince stepping down is if just it tanks, if the corporate sponsors apply a lot of pressure. I saw some mentions in the chat about, you know, like NFL owners that have had scandals and lived through them. Different dynamic, though. I mean, it's true, but you're looking at a guy who is the head of a publicly traded company, whereas an NFL owner is part of a bigger wheel. You know, so like the corporate sponsors are really, or Vince is very beholden to these sponsors who are giving his company billions of dollars in the long term. And so, I mean, if they really wanted to squeeze him out, they could. You know, if NBC Universal or Fox really wanted to go after McMahon on that, he could be forced out. It is possible.
But here's the only problem with that. The corporate sponsors still, foolishly, in my opinion, think Vince McMahon is like the end-all, be-all of pro wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, unless if it gets real salacious,
yes,
then they're probably not going to move too. Now, you know, I saw this on the agenda, corporate sponsors. I started thinking, wheels started turning. Remember, it actually was pressure on a corporate sponsor. I believe it was Snickers. Remember that Battle Royal? They were going to call it the Fabulous Moolah Battle Royal to be the counter to the Andre Battle Royal they had for the men. And everyone contacted Snickers and was like, Fabulous Moolah is a horrible person. And Snickers, like, didn't want to be a part of that anymore. And they actually, and that was actually, for people who may have forgotten that anecdote, that was a time, while much smaller than this, where pressure from a corporate sponsor actually did work and change something within the WWE.
So I was listening to Observer Radio on this earlier today, and Dave was talking about it, and he talked about how, he was talking to some business people he knows in the Bay Area who were like, Vince is definitely out on this. They've seen bigger people fall for much less. But then other people he's talking to were like, there's no way Vince is going down from this. There's no way to predict it. There's no way. It totally depends, I think, on the media coverage of it, to be honest with you. Because that's when the corporations, the sponsors are going to pick up on it more.
Two things. When Dave tweeted yesterday, like somebody sent him the article and then like he quote tweeted it with, "This is very bad."
Yeah.
Like I read it in Meltzer's voice, and there have been very few times reading something in Meltzer's voice has brought a chuckle to me, more of a chuckle to me than that one. I just, just that, this is very bad. It was that, him calling Hulk's performance on Arsenio way back when sorry. And then this like incredible line he had about Murray Hodgson, his performance on the infamous Donahue show opposite Vince. And I guess that brings us to our next point, kind of like what Vince has been through before, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the history of scandals and how he's survived.
Real quick. So I saw in the chat, Frank, any chance it's Shane? Adam in the chat. What about the woman herself, Linda, his wife at the time, as Vince said on Pat McAfee? Neither of them are on the board of directors, but they're family members. So I guess it's, it's possible they could know about it. So I can't rule it out entirely.
God, remember that? Like, that's another thing too. So it's so funny with this Stephanie and Hunter situation, how they've sort of been, just, stripped of power. We've all forgotten about the beginning of the year, like Shane McMahon just being like thrown out, like on his ass from the company.
Yeah.
And like the Vince and Shane relationship was, after the Royal Rumble was said to be as bad as it ever was. Ever.
So we'll get to the history here in just a second. Before we do, if for some reason Vince did go down from this and he was forced out, and frankly, this is a topic that is beyond the scandal because Vince isn't young. And we've talked about this before. Like, what is the succession line with WWE? Nobody really knows. I don't want anything to happen to Vince McMahon, but it could. He's getting up there in age, and if he's gone, like, who does take over? I mean, it's really hard to predict, but it seems to me like Paul Levesque would be most likely. And, he's had the health problems, and it's, I don't know that he should be taking on that kind of responsibility right now, but it's, to me, he would seem like the most likely person to run the show, or at least for a little while.
I don't know. Like, do we think there's some succession plan, like, written down in a vault right now?
I don't know.
Is it just going to be a mad
It's kind of crazy if they don't have that. It's pretty crazy to have a billion-dollar company with no line of succession with an owner who's in his 70s.
Well, they can't even have TV written out for more than 2 weeks out.
Yeah,
so.
I know.
2 hours out.
Yeah.
They're changing that show right before. The thing is, like, Triple H and Stephanie were very much sent to the corner, though, Ryan.
True.
I'm not.
But they're still on the board of directors.
That's true, but I don't know. Was that just like, all right, we're not going to completely humiliate you? I know, Hunter, we basically fired every single person you brought into the fold, and Stephanie, we buried you to Business Insider, but we'll let you save some face. And then they didn't count on, and then Vince didn't count on this coming out.
If you look at the names on the board of directors, I got it right here in front of me. I mean, most of them are not wrestling people. So let's say that they look into the finances, and that's like the big thing that takes down Vince or something. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but there is the issue with the alleged $100,000 to $200,000 salary, and if that's tied to the relationship, that is a problem. They've said that the settlement or the hush money was Vince's own money, which wouldn't be a problem to the board of directors, but yeah, go ahead.
The guy from CNN got taken down for not disclosing a relationship with an employee, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
That was
all right.
Yeah.
Recently. Is that different than this? I mean, there was no hush money. I mean, they were like totally. I mean, they were apparently just very happy to do the thing, as Randy Savage would say once upon a time.
I mean, I don't know. Dynamics wise, with it being company money, the board could have a vote of no confidence on Vince.
But I'm saying there was no hush money payment, but there was like a failure to disclose a relationship with an employee. And I think it was Brandon Thurston on Twitter this afternoon was saying that sort of relationship was in violation of this code of conduct that was posted.
Just having like a superior in a relationship with a superior.
You're not supposed to do that anymore.
No. I mean, Vince has had multiple relationships over the years.
I would never do that, but I'm just saying, no one else should.
One of the the Top Rope Nation interns.
Yeah.
One of the reports. I mean, it talked about they're going back and they're looking at the history of these NDAs, and it's not the first time.
Yeah.
And we know there's a lot. I mean, you and Liam have talked about the scandals with this company's past recently over on Squared Circle Gazette.
Well, we haven't even really gotten into the beef.
We haven't got to 92, but you started to talk about it in 91 and what was coming. But I mean, you go back to the 80s with the first female referee and what was alleged there with Vince and a limousine. I mean, a lot of this could come out. Jimmy Snuka. A lot of this could come out in the media again. It's really, really hard to predict where this is going, but again, you look at this list on the board of directors. You got Vince, you got Nick Khan, you got Stephanie, you got Paul Levesque, and then you got a bunch of people from corporate America. You got Steve Koonin, the CEO at Atlanta Hawks, State Farm Arena. You've got people from Sony Pictures Entertainment, people from Six Flags, General Motors. They're not wrestling people. So if Vince was out and you look at that board of directors and they're looking at who should run the show, I mean, to me, Paul Levesque rises to the top. Now, with a lot. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was saying, I don't think the person in charge of putting together the shows and running
totally
the
different thing
and would necessarily be in charge of the company.
No, totally different
to
thing.
be honest with you, like something like Disney could buy it, they'll own it, and they'll just be like, all right, tell us who can write a wrestling show, and they're in charge.
Could this situation force a sale? I mean, you could go down that line too. I mean, that could happen.
What if the name on the contract reads Khan? Tony Khan.
Well, I mean, I think Dave talked about that on Observer Radio too. If you look at the billionaires in the world that could like put together an offer for the WWE, if it wasn't a corporation, that Khan family, if you gave him time, Tony Khan could get the investors to buy WWE. Like, no doubt about it. If you looked at what the purchase price of WWE would be, we talked about this before, I think in the Facebook group. You're looking at what, $7-8 billion, maybe a little bit more. Certainly he could head a group. He wouldn't do it himself, but if you gave him and his family time, they could come up with the money. I have no doubt about that.
I'll tell you what, Justin,
that would be the ultimate.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Justin Joy, that's too many fucking belts.
That's perfect. That's perfect. That's so good. That's perfect.
All right, we're going in a lot of directions here, and this is a random one that I want to throw it in. I know we want to go through a little bit more of the history, but
yeah.
Were you surprised, or did you guys make a mental note of the fact there was no denial in the WWE response? Like, there was no, these allegations are absolutely uncalled for. Like, you know, like Vince in that Oliver Luck hearing. I'm sure everyone's read that by now, saying, weren't you charged before, Mr. McMahon? Yes, with charges that no one has ever been charged with before or since. Like, there was nothing. It was basically like, yeah, this is very serious and we're looking into it. There was nothing. Oh, this is, hogwash and we're going to defend ourselves. There was nothing like that at all.
I wouldn't say I was surprised. I've seen enough of these scenarios, throughout the years where the only thing to me it could indicate is maybe a certain level of guilt that they really need to put something together to put out to the press. But we've seen it before where someone or a corporation or something has had allegations leveled against it. And sometimes it takes days or weeks before, they're going to respond to it.
I mean, Jerry McDevitt, one of the best lawyers. I mean, he's been with Vince for decades.
We haven't got him off the steroid trial.
Yeah, we haven't seen really anything out of him yet. I mean, it's coming. Vince is someone very good at his job working for him. So, I mean, Jerry would have drawn up the NDAs. So.
Yes, I believe he did. Yeah, I believe that said he did, right? In that letter from the friend or whatever, it said Lawyer Jerry or whatever it referred to him as. So, yeah, but I mean, man, Vince has had a lot thrown at him before. You kind of, pardon me, talked about some of the stuff, but, that 91, 92, it was incredible. They got the bad press starting when they foolishly tried to exploit the Persian Gulf War to pop a Mania rating. Didn't work. Hogan lies amidst steroid allegations, lies on Arsenio. The sorry performance. You're welcome, Liam O'Rourke. And then Billy Graham and Dr. D go on the offensive in the media. Huge onslaught, basically saying Hogan's a steroid abuser, a liar, and there's a massive drug problem in WWE. There was the drug raid at the St. Louis house show. There was Barry Orton's accusations that basically you could be denied a push if you denied homosexual advances from certain executives. There was the underage ring boys, which as you Rita Chatterton went on Geraldo and alleged Vince McMahon raped her. All that happened within 3 months, all that except with the exception of the Hogan lying on Arsenio and the Persian Gulf thing. And then they, the feds obviously brought charges of conspiracy to distribute steroids on Vince, and he survived all of that. Yeah. So, I mean, that was a lot, and we don't know what is still hiding under the covers here, but if he survived that, my guess is, unless if there's an enemy within, he'd probably survive again this time.
That's what I think is going to happen. Unless there's more information to be kind of slowly trickled out to keep this in the news cycle, I would be willing to bet this is just something that's going to blow away in the wind.
Someone in the chat had asked if he could be fired. They could do a vote of no confidence, but the issue is that Vince, I mean, he controls the company. It is publicly traded company, but they've divided their stock shares into like Class A shares and Class B shares, and Vince and his family and his trust owns most of the Class B shares, and the Class B shares have 10 times the voting power of the Class A shares, which are sold, abound.
He himself like dominates the voting power. So like even if like Triple H and if Triple H went Evolution style on him and gave him the thumbs down, I still don't know how much that matters.
Yeah, so there's a lot of dynamics going on here. A lot of legal maneuverings could come up. We'll see. It's really hard to forecast, what's going to happen. But I mean, that's kind of the gist as the story just broke a little over 24 hours ago about what we know right now. So we'll certainly be following this.
Johnny Ace falling on the sword would not surprise me.
Oh no. Yeah,
because
that's more likely than not, I think, right now.
Yeah, because I mean, there's a lot of smoke by that fire. I saw David Bixenspan today retweet AJ Lee's book where she alleged someone, and it's
in talent relations.
Yes, in talent relations, and you can put it together basically saying, well, the problem with you is none of our fans would want to have sex with you. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Hello. And then Fightful today had an anonymous source saying, I would rather get all my shit in a trash bag than ever deal with him, referring to Johnny Ace.
Ooh.
And remember, that trash bag situation is what led to Johnny Ace coming back, obviously.
Yeah.